Staying in the US, and Bernie Sanders has ended his presidential campaign, announcing the decision on Wednesday. The Vermont senator said he couldn't see a feasible path to get enough votes to win the nomination at the Democratic Party's convention, which has been pushed back to August because of COVID-19. Joining me now, our international affairs editor, Armen Georgian. Armen, what does Bernie Sanders pulling out mean for Joe Biden?
Well, this is quite an ironic situation for Joe Biden. He first ran to be the Democratic candidate in 1988. He tried again 10 years later, 20 years later. So this is a goal that has eluded him for more than 30 years. And just as he comes closer to it than ever before, he finds that this extraordinary situation, this national crisis, means that he can't build on the momentum from his recent victories, and he can't really build that much on what should otherwise have been very good news for him, which was Bernie Sanders pulling out of the election race. Of course, he's basically at home doing live streaming. He can't get out and about. He can't hold fundraisers. He can't do rallies. And crucially, it's very difficult for him now to do that very hard job of winning around Bernie Sanders' supporters. There was one recent opinion poll which suggested that 20% of Sanders voters would not vote for Joe Biden if Joe Biden became the candidate. And that 20% could make a big difference in states like Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and others in that north and northeastern parts of the US. And those are exactly the places that the Trump campaign will be targeting Biden in.
So who gains and loses the most in this crisis, Donald Trump or Joe Biden?
It's very hard to predict. Previous presidents who've been trying to get re-elected, they've faced either economic crisis or another crisis where Americans were losing their lives, such as after the September 11th attacks, national security. But they haven't really faced both situations at the same time. And Donald Trump has, in a sense, both of those crises, both Americans losing their lives, but also an economic crisis now looming. So it's pretty unique for an incumbent who's trying to get re-elected. It's very hard to say how this will pan out, but it does seem pretty likely that the election will be essentially a referendum on how Trump has handled the crisis. And if people decide that he hasn't done a good job, he could still get re-elected, because, of course, they won't simply give the presidency to the opponent by default. The opponent has to show that he firstly, that he has the right character and leadership. And on that, of course, Joe Biden is vulnerable because of his sometimes confused and rambling statements. And also, the challenger has to show that he has a convincing message, which is better than Donald Trump's, on what does he actually say to all the people who are going to lose their jobs? How is he going to get them out of this better than Donald Trump would? So on those issues, of course, the Trump campaign will be targeting Biden in relation to Biden's economic record and the Obama-Biden White House's record on things like swine flu. Certainly the challenge for both men is huge, but Biden is absolutely not a shoo-in in the presidential election whenever that ultimately is held.
All right, thank you very much for your analysis, Armen. Armen Georgian there.